In the still of the night, I hear the wolf honey sniffing around your door. In the still of the night, I hear my heart beating heavy, telling me I gotta have more. In the shadow of night, I see the full moon rise, telling me what's in store. My heart starts shaking, my body started aching, and I just can't take no more. For the night to come. Ooh, baby. In the sun of the night, in the cold moonlight, I feel my heart is aching. In the sun of the night.
Whoa, all right. How's everybody doing today on this Sunday? My name is 12 Gauge. Welcome to my channel, 12 Gauge Investigative. You know, I thought I'd get on here and I'd talk a little bit about something that's really important in our community that is often not talked about. Let me say hello to the people in the chat really quickly, and then I'll get on with my show. Rondi Potter, how you doing? Leslie and Billy, always a pleasure. Let me be frank with you. How's it going, buddy? Long time no see. Infinity, Suzanne, how's it going? Hope you guys are doing well. Jeff H, how's it going? In the Still of the Night, if y'all don't know that song, It's by Whitesnake. This version was a band called Hellstorm. If y'all haven't heard of Hellstorm, she is awesome, man. She is an awesome singer. Um, I thought that I'd get on here because this topic is really important. And it's a break from everything else that's going on. Um, well, y'all in a chatting mood. Welcome. Come on in. Y'all get it going. Y'all get it popping. If you want me, send me a link. You got knowledge on this, Frank? Because I'm going to be playing a video too. So I don't mind you being up here. Warning label Nina. Best song ever. Yeah, I think the beginning of it is. Let me start the beginning again because this is awesome. Let me see if it goes back to the beginning. Here it goes, the beginning.
In the still of the night, I hear the wolf honey sniffing around your door. In the still of the night, I hear my heart beating every, telling me I gotta have more. In the shadow of night, I see the full moon rise, telling me what's in store. My heart starts shaking, my body started aching, and I just can't take no more.
I mean, isn't that song like catchy as hell? Like, even though it's an older song, it's amazing, man. It's amazing. It's an amazing song. But let me throw out some links here. I guess I'm gonna have open panel. If you guys want to come up, as long as we have a good time up here. Let me put a banner up here. That way we can. Let me play the music while I'm doing this. All right. This part right here. Part right here. I can't give away. No. Can't give away. I can't give away. Man, that song is old, but it gets you going.
Good.
How's it going, man?
Good. What about you?
Hey, man, I can't complain. I'm doing well. Just thought I'd get on here and do a tough topic that's tough for a lot of people, but you know what? It's something that needs to be discussed. I saw this I saw this video. We can talk a little bit before I play the video. Um, have you ever experienced this in your line of work? With people that you used to talk to and stuff. Did you ever experience? Um,
Domestic violence?
huh?
Domestic violence?
Yes, domestic violence.
Buddy, let me tell you something. Um, I interviewed a guy, let me see, approximately 1 year ago, was I think the 28th of December. It was a content creator on Delphi. And this Monday, he killed himself and his wife.
Hmm.
It's freaking weird because you're talking about domestic violence, because that was a domestic violence situation as well. So I thought I would hop on because, it's just an amazing opportunity to spread awareness.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the reasons that I wanted to get up here and do this, because it's such a dangerous topic as well for a lot of people. Not only um, man on woman, it's also women can have issues with men as well. Like they could be the abuser.
Yeah, it can be vice versa.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, there's this new terminology that has been brought out. It's called femicide instead of homicide. But there's no such thing as femicide, because that only kind of puts a group of with all due respect, women. Predominantly females are the ones that are the ones that are victim of domestic violence. That's a fact. But to put them in the category when shit hits the fan into a totally different category like femicide is unfair, because men are equally, because that is what we want, right? We want equal rights on work and on that kind of crap. But when it comes to homicide, why do we just say, for example, that it's just all females that are being involved, while the men are also being, and it's just a small percentage that are having domestic violence against them, but a lot of men do not want to speak up against that.
Right. And there's also with the same sex couples as well. I've seen a lot of domestic issues in that arena as well. A lot of domestic violence in that arena. Not personally that I've seen it, but I see a lot of couples that get very violent towards each other.
They do.
What do you think about that?
Well, I certainly agree with you, but like, what is the reasoning in that? What? There's no psychology behind it, is there? Or is there?
I've not done enough research to really know, but I
It's
would
a hierarchy. That's what.
that you have.
Well, most certainly. I have worked with lesbian clients, and the thing is that when they're a couple together, there's always this hierarchy. So it doesn't matter if you're male, female, or whatever the fuck you're into, dog, goat. I don't know, but the fact of the remainder is that there's always this issue with who makes the most money, who provides, and that is the issue. Who provides for the family? And then the other one might be left out, and that might cause insecurity, that might cause arguments, and so on and so forth, because it can go back and forth. Because anybody can make those arguments. So, we can't label that necessarily, because we do not know what that issue is because what goes through people their mind if they commit domestic violence, because maybe they're just hot tempered. Maybe they can't do an argument. Maybe they do the same whether with a man than they would do with a female. We do not necessarily know that, right?
Right. Well, let's get the video started, and then I'll pause from time to time so we can comment on it. Like I said, this is a topic that's really, I mean, it's not my scope, but I do know a little bit about it. So, feel free to hop in there and, give your input on it because, you're the co host right now. So you got the floor as
Homie,
well.
the honor.
All right, here we go.
The ending of her life is the beginning. At that moment, the process starts and we build backwards. And we're trying to fill in what was happening right before that death. And then what was happening right before that. And right before that.
He seemed like a nice guy. But, I didn't know, he was an alcoholic, and I didn't know that he was going to be abusive. And so.
Everyone looks at the picture perfect postcard of State College, and for the most part, that's really what it is. Central Pennsylvania is a very rural area, and then in the middle of this is this community that popped up around Penn State University. It's not a high crime area. I mean, you can walk to the grocery store at night if you wanted to. Because it's this idyllic community, they refer to it as the Happy Valley. Everybody's here happy. Nothing ever goes wrong in Happy Valley. But underneath of that, there is crime occurring, and there's violent crime occurring. And unfortunately, a lot of that crime is within households.
Indoors.
In the last 2 years, my unit has handled over 500 cases of domestic violence. And for a couple of years...
Well, the mother made an interesting comment right there. I did know he was an alcoholic. And that's something that we didn't say about any of this stuff. Sometimes, not always, these domestic issues can be based behind individuals having substance abuse problems or even mental health problems or vice versa. What do you think, Frank?
I think it's kind of both sides.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And like she was just saying right there, the detective was just saying, this picturesque community, which it is. It's in the middle of all these trees and mountains and everything. Penn State University. Isn't it interesting, Frank, how people, when they describe a college town or some area like that, some small town area, they always say, we never really thought it would happen here. We never really thought we'd have that kind of problem. She said over 500 domestic violence issues in that community.
You know what it is? Because, they try to advertise Penn State as being this flat out non-violent community. Well, in-house, the detective just told us from 500 or more domestic violence situations happens. Because you know what? Not all domestic violence situations get reported. There's way more.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you 100%.
All of our homicides in Sandra County were domestic violence related, meaning that if you were not in a domestic violence relationship, pretty safe area. But if you can't be safe in your own home, does it matter if your community is safe? In 2004, we sat down and did the review of the death of Amy Homan McGee. Friends, family, and coworkers of Mrs. McGee were brought in to talk about that death. One person's talking about an incident that happened in 99. One person's talking about an incident that happened in 2000. Another participant's talking about something that happened years before that. How could all of these things have been going on and she still died? And the only way I could get my brain around it was to try to sit down, lay it all out, and walk through the process of Amy's life. I tried to just dive into it and make it make sense to myself. And once it made sense to myself, it came together in this very streaming narrative of Amy's life. And this was making so much more sense when we walked through what Amy was experiencing in the manner she was experiencing it, so that we could see the times when maybe something could have been different. And we said, people have to hear this.
I saw you shaking your head. What was going through your mind just then, Frank?
She's right.
She's right, huh? Yeah, I agree with you.
You know, the thing is that people cry wolf a lot of times and say that they're being domestically abused. And this lady apparently already did a lot of calls that kind of proves that it happened. But a lot of people, see, this is the thing, Gage, is a lot of people lie about domestic violence when they're in for example, a settlement with their kids, or they're just being divorced, is that they tend to use domestic violence as a tool. This lady apparently did not.
When you said a lot of people lie about it, what do you mean by that? Can you explain that a little further?
Well, they simply lie. They simply lie on being hit or being whatever, or let me rephrase that. They're simply afraid to. And see,
Okay.
between those two there's two things that needs to be distinguished. A lot of people lie. We all know that. Or they're too afraid to report it to the police. This lady reported it to the police and still went back to that gentleman. That is most predominantly because she has battered wife syndrome. Because she does not know if they have a family together or if they have a house together. She doesn't know where to go.
Right, right. Yeah, and when you say they lie, it's like, if they do make it to the hospital, it's usually, well, I fell down, or I slipped, or, any kind of excuse to bring up about a bruise, or, some kind of black eye or something, that's where you're discussing the lying. Well,
Not only that, but some people lie too. Just keep that in mind.
okay,
Just to get their way.
okay.
You can tell. You can tell that some people are just there, and others, really pay attention to detail. And Amy's one that she always followed up. She always answered your questions. And I always thought Amy was very, very conscientious, very hard worker, intelligent young woman, to be doing the things that she wanted to do. Amy and Vince, I think this was the early part of their relationship. So I think the attention that he put forth, it seemed like very positive attention. She seemed to be excited about it, that he would stop in and ask where she was, and he was concerned about, her whereabouts, or he wanted to see her. So it seemed like, being younger and in love, it was a very positive thing at the time.
So in 2004, we did a case review on a couple, Amy and Vincent McGee. At the time that Amy was graduating from Penn State, Vincent was coming back stateside and discharging from the military. The two then met while Amy was working at a home improvement store and Vincent was working for an armored car service, making the money delivery and pickup at that home improvement store.
He was just a different type of person. She had a couple friends, that they would get together and do something. But it was, after a while, he would take her to work. He would go pick her up after work. It was like,
There we go.
she had to be with him all the time.
I just thought
Did you hear that?
Yeah, he's already isolating him.
Yeah, already, in the very beginning.
his behaviors that he exhibited, with the gun and the posturing and some of those things, I just thought he was a little bit off. But I didn't know him very well. Those were only behaviors that you saw when he would come in.
In September of that year, the home improvement store sent a letter to the Armored Car Service asking that Vincent no longer be the one who brings the money and picks the money up. And the letter indicated there was a conflict of interest.
Yep.
Now, when I talked to her coworkers, I asked them, what is this conflict of interest? What would happen when Vincent would show up there? And they told me that Amy would become very distressed. It would interfere with her workday. She would have to worry about if she was talking to a male coworker, if she was in the break room with males, if she didn't get to the door fast enough when he walked in, if she was talking to a male customer.
And I remember one specific time.
Hey, Frank, isn't that word grooming that comes to mind? Power and control.
Well, I would use the word grooming in another case, but this is more manipulation.
Yeah. Like what she's saying, she had to be mindful to get to the front before he got there, because if she was hanging around other men, obviously it was starting to cause problems early on, correct?
Yep. What do you think that is?
Low self-esteem.
Not only that, he's wanting control because he wants to be the only one that wants her and nobody else.
Right. I got to show you that I'm the only one that could ever want you this much, right?
I wish women would feel that about me, but apparently I'm doing something wrong.
Goodness. See, then you'd be up here talking about your situation. Frank.
I know, right?
12 gauge, can I come on panel? I need to
Yeah, I
share.
I need to share
my
with you.
situation. I need to share my situation. Yeah.
Time that it was at the end of an evening, and she appeared to be a little bit concerned about. She seemed to be anxious about Vince maybe not being there when he was in the store, and I just remember saying to her, Amy, you don't worry about that. I mean, you have a lot of life ahead of you, meaning that you have a lot of opportunity. And she just kind of laughed it off and just said, "That's Vince."
I didn't know that Amy Homan was Amy McGee. And a matter of fact, she had grown, so last I saw her was years before when she showed up with her father. Of course, it all clicked into place for me that night.
In December of 1998, she needs help. Vince is intoxicated. She wants to leave. She doesn't know what to do. So her parents go over to the house. She gets in the car and she tells them about his alcohol abuse and the things that he's been doing and what he did when she tried to leave.
She, didn't feel safe. She wanted to leave, and he tried to, stop her when we left. And pulling away from the house, he took his fist and smacked the picture window and broke the one section of it.
And her parents convince her to go to the police station with them. So they drive to the police station, and now she's in the car, in the police station, in the parking lot, and they're trying to convince her to go in and tell the police what is happening. She doesn't know if what the police can do will be better or will make it worse. And eventually the officer comes out.
How could it make it worse, Frank?
Escalation.
He's already busted out a window. Obviously, she's already been exposed to his violent tendencies, right?
Because it would make him feel that he's losing everything. And while that entire business of what he did is getting her all isolated, is just a phenomenon to get all the control that he needs just to be with her. So when you take that away, that is when this happens. It happens like a child not getting his way and having a temper tantrum.
I can't imagine being in this position when somebody has that much control over you. I can't.
It can happen so fast.
Yeah, and because you view this as love, they have a term called love bombing, right? And I hadn't heard that term until somebody spoke about it on my panel. And I was like, what is love bombing? And they're like, well, that's when they initially just give you all this kind of affection and love and, the feeling of being wanted.
You know what's the other word of that? The honeymoon phase.
Yeah, the honeymoon phase. You're right. Man, I feel for her already. I mean, I know.
Out into the parking lot, talks to Amy. Thankfully, he knew Amy since she was a little girl.
We had a barbecue in the backyard, and I can remember Amy running around as a 5 or 6 year old. She was the apple of her father's eye. Being an only child, he loved her dearly, and it showed because she'd be running around and he'd be let her go for a little bit, and then he'd say, tell her to calm down or to, knock it off, and then he'd look at me and he'd smirk, just because they're so full of energy. But initially, I'm not sure that Amy even wanted to come to the police. She didn't know what to do. She called her parents, and they came and got her, and then Mr. Homan just brought her right over to our station. She was saying that her husband had been drinking most of the day, that he was breaking things up around the house. The threat she told me that he made to her was, if you take my kid away from me, I'll kill you. And at the time, there's a condition on that threat, and the DA would not prosecute those type of threats. So after speaking with her, I strongly urged her to get a PFA.
So the officer takes Amy before a local magistrate, and an emergency protective order is issued by the judge. And that order calls for the relinquishment of his weapons and the eviction of him from the residence, and directs that he have no contact with Amy until there's a hearing or a continued order. Officers go out to the house. When they get there, he's immediately aggressive.
Several times I asked him, Mr. McGee, where are your weapons in the house? Do you want me to tear your whole house apart, or you just want to tell me where they are? And he wouldn't answer me. So the first, Sergeant Albright watched him while I started searching the residence for weapons. The first place I went was the chair that he had been sitting in. And underneath where his right leg would have been was a loaded handgun. While I was gathering up the weapons, Sergeant Albright was just kind of keeping an eye on Mr. McGee. And I noticed several times as I'm going in and out of rooms, and I can hear a cell phone ringing.
He's on the phone, and he's complaining, and he's angry, and he's agitated, and he's complaining about her getting the police involved, and she's making this happen, and this is all her fault.
As I was going out the door, I noticed.
Isn't that narcissistic traits a little bit? Gaslighting?
Yeah, it is.
Gaslighting a little bit? Can you inform our viewers of what the definition of gaslighting is, Frank?
Gaslighting is a German terminology. It comes from an old play. And it means that you are using the words of somebody else to twist it in such a manner that they feel that it's their fault. That is the definition of gaslighting. So, in English, it's technically manipulation, but manipulation with such a construction that it's not you who did it, it's the other person who did it.
Very well, very well. Because I've gave the definition, I've given examples, but I still believe the audience has a tough time with it. I'm glad you explained that. You explained it very well. Thank you.
Just that he was on the phone again, and he made a comment, something along the lines of, thanks for taking my guns.
While they're loading their cars out in front of the house, their dispatching center calls them over the radio. Amy just called. Vincent's calling her on the phone.
So I called her, and she said, he's been calling me. Well, I said that he had another gun that we didn't find, and that he was going to kill himself. And why are you doing this to me? Why'd you take my guns from me? Well, that's the comment I just heard him make.
The judge said, don't have any contact with her, and while we're still here, you're calling her and continuing this abuse? So they go back inside, and they violate him on that protective order. At the hearing the next day, the judge says, yes, you are in contempt of court, and holds him accountable for the time he spent in jail. No additional jail time, but time served.
I think I've heard of this case in another capacity, because I remember that part right there, that the individual was calling her, or maybe the individual was in jail calling her. I don't know. I get it confused. But anyway, this guy was calling her while knowing he had a protective order.
I was talking about another case, right? Exactly the same. She had a restraining order. The guy went up there with his new girlfriend's car, shot her 3 times in the face.
Yeah. I mean, that shows what? Little regard for that piece of paper, right? And that's what people often say is, what's the protective order? It's not going to do anything, because a lot of the men or women even would say, you know what? That protective order isn't going to stop me. By the time they get here, you'll be gone. You know? That's not going to save you. And that's a hell of a place to be.
Because it's not really protective, is it?
No, it isn't.
It's just
Not
an
at all.
order.
Yeah.
I believe this was the first time that she actually took a step that night to protect herself and her child. So that was a huge step for her to take. And I'm sure it was very difficult for her.
Because it had happened over a weekend, the emergency protection that Amy had was expiring that Monday, the 21st of December. Amy needed to go and ask for additional protection if she wanted that protection to continue. And she did. So on December 21st, she went and she outlined the history of what had been happening. And when she outlined that history, she went back for 9 months. She recounted him pulling the baby out of her arms, him choking her, him breaking things in the house, threatening to burn the house down, threatening to kill her.
The person filing the PFA, and a lot of times it's because of the way they've been treated, think it's their fault and it's their failure. There are people that finally file the PFA, and when you look at the background of this, you're sitting there thinking, why didn't they file this thing 2 years ago?
So even though we know now what had been happening, quite often we don't know it at the time. There's more occurring in these cases than we're ever aware of.
She never talked about being abused or anything like that. We never learned until it, came out from co-workers and that she was in a abusive setting. There was time that she had some black and blue marks on her arms, but she told us that was because she went to the storage where they had stuff stored, was looking for something, and boxes fell on her.
December 28th, the couple...
There's that lie that you were talking about, Frank.
Yeah, exactly.
She was looking for something, and boxes fell on her. I don't know if they're going to say this in the future, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. On average, it takes about 9 times for somebody to finally leave a domestic violence situation. And what I've read is the reasoning for that is because there's always that cooling down period. That
Well,
excuse me.
let me tell you, I gave, please, just let's keep watching this, but I sent you something in private chat, and that is what happened last Monday. I was in shock and awe, and I know that you sent me that email why I wasn't live, because dude, I was in shock. I couldn't believe what happened. I knew that guy was batshit crazy, and this is exactly why I hopped on today, because this is precisely what happened. And the sickest part is that YouTube content creators are out there fucking giving this guy a legacy. Saying, oh, he wasn't that bad of a guy. What the fuck do you guys think? What do you guys think that BTK, his neighbor, said? Oh yeah, I never noticed that guy was a fucking serial killer. If they noticed it, they would have called it in. So obviously... Dude, I'm getting fucking hot-tempered, and I don't mean to. But the point is that domestic violence is the most hardest thing to prove in court, because people are not there.
Like you were just saying as well. It's an escalating situation.
Yes.
It starts out with, the power and control, the things of, well, I don't want you wearing that, or I don't want you to be talking to her because she she talks bad about me, or I don't want you around your family because, your dad doesn't like me, or, then it's, well, let me give you a ride. Let me pick that out for you. Let me do this. All that is abuse. Anything that's withheld from you freely, the definition of that is abuse. Anything that somebody withholds from you freely is abusive. Like you say, I love you, and somebody says, no, you don't. That's being abusive. Plain and simple. Many times people say, well, that's being weak if you take offense to that. Well, that's the mentality that people have to get away from is abuse is abuse. Verbal, physical, sexual.
The thing is, Gage, is that there's a huge difference between I love you and I love you. There's a huge difference. In the context of the wording, it's all about how you say it, the manner of how you say it. You don't use it as a cheap excuse, because there's a difference. And the thing is that if people expect it, then don't say it, because people will expect it. They know that you know them.
True. Very good. Yes.
Appears together before the judge, asking that protection order be dropped. Now imagine this relationship where there's this escalation and these put downs and these insults and these threats. I'm going to burn the house down. I'm going to kill you. I'm choking you. I'm physically violent with you. I'm breaking things in your house. And now you're sitting next to me in the courtroom and I'm telling you, tell the judge you're not afraid of me. Tell the judge he should give me my guns back. So Amy's stuck. So Amy tells the judge she's not afraid, tells the judge to give him his guns back. And the judge does. Now, Amy doesn't understand all of the nuances of the legal system. She doesn't understand that the only reason the judge has the guns is because of the protective order. All she knows is that as she's sitting in that courtroom with her batterer right next to her, she is watching a judge give him those guns.
Guns are never returned until somebody files a request to have the guns returned. And once I receive that request, I serve a copy on the district attorney and the victim, the other party, and they come in. But there's nothing under the law that really allows us to keep the guns once the PFA has expired or been withdrawn.
I didn't know that.
It's like when you talked to her and he wasn't around. It was like she was trying to get out of the situation. I think she knew that he would try to do something, but she wouldn't tell us that.
The couple's now living in Uniontown. They've moved to Uniontown from the State College area because Vincent's family is in Uniontown. In October, Pennsylvania State Police gets involved. In the Bedford Barracks, they're called to an incident that occurred on State Route 220. While they're in the vehicle, a heated argument starts. That's right out of the police report, a heated argument. And in the course of that argument, Vincent takes a handgun, discharges it into the passenger window of the vehicle. Amy's driving the vehicle, and the baby is strapped in a car seat in the back of the car. When they take Vincent into custody, they take him before a magistrate, and he is lodged in the local jail for $5,000. But the interesting thing about the date that happened, October 18th, was supposed to be Amy's first day at work at a new job. Now, thankfully, her employer did extend her training day, and they let her continue and complete her training starting a little bit later.
I think one of the first indications I had that there was abuse with Amy was she could never be working alone with a male. And then just the things that Amy would have to do. She had to report in when she left for lunch. And by report in, I mean she had to call to her husband. She had to call when she got back from lunch. So he had to know where she was at all moments of time. She had to miss work a few times because of Vince, or she had no one to take care of her children because he had done something. As an employee, she performed her job very well.
In January of 2000, an employee at the phone store documents with his employer Vincent keeps calling and calling here. It's interfering with our workday. We don't know what to do. It's interfering with the business of the store.
He called into the store and asked to speak to his wife. She had just left for lunch. She didn't call him like she was supposed to, and she turned her phone off because she didn't want to talk to him.
Wow. What do you think, Frank?
What do I think? Well, my man, I've been involved with domestic violence situations pretty much as my YouTube career, and I'm pretty much know how they go. That's why I'm trying to contact somebody to get on here that can explain exactly how it feels like.
Right. I mean, this situation where he called the job multiple times asking for her, she leaves for lunch, turns her cell phone off. That is an act of defiance in an abuser's mind, is it not?
That is.
How dare you? How dare you go to lunch and who you're at lunch with? Why are you hiding? What are you hiding?
So she was at lunch. He called into the store, and I said, okay, I'm sorry. She's at lunch. And he said, well, go get her. And I said, well, no, she's left the store. She's at lunch. The next thing, another line in the phone rings, in the store rings, I should say. Another employee answers the phone, and it's Vince on the phone with her asking to speak to Amy. And she starts to explain the same thing. She's not in the store. She's left for lunch. And we're both talking to this guy at the same time. So he's got probably his cell phone and his home phone going, calling the store, looking for her. And I had mentioned to him at that time that he needed to stop calling the store like this for her. He was disrupting business and he was going to get her in trouble. And then he mentioned that maybe he would come down and take care of me. Meaning, I won't use the rest you can fill in the blank. So I thought, boy, this is really something.
In March, Vincent's granted ARD. And in the court system in Pennsylvania, ARD means accelerated rehabilitative disposition. And basically that's a really fancy way of saying, if you be good for 18 months, we'll erase this like it never happened. And this is for shooting a gun off in a car, in a moving car on a state highway. What was the court system thinking? Why would they agree to throw this away? They didn't have any choice. This is the best they could get because Amy was not able to testify. And you'll never hear me in any of my cases that I prosecute talk about a victim who won't testify. Because if we could guarantee a victim that they would be safe, that the outcome of the court case would be better for them, then I believe that a victim would testify. But we can't guarantee that. April of 2001, the couple's second child is born. In June, they got in an argument. Vincent was intoxicated, and when Amy tried to leave, Vincent jumped in the bed of the truck. So she drives to the police station to ask for their help in her toddler child, and her infant child escaping to State College to her parents' house. So the officer separates the two, drives Vincent back home, and allows Amy to continue on to her parents' house. In August, the Uniontown police are dispatched to the local hospital. Amy is at the hospital with a broken nose. She tells the officers that her husband, Vincent, punched her in the nose in an argument. The officer doesn't arrest him, but does give Amy some information about protective orders and tells Amy to call the Uniontown police if the problems continue when she gets home.
Another damn protective order, Frank.
Mm-hmm.
Another protective order. File a protective order. File a protective order. We can't do anything until he breaks the protective order. Even if he's driving around the house, we can't do anything unless he's X, Y, Z, what the protective order says.
12. Meanwhile, I'm hoping somebody can come on here that's gonna tell a story, and it's probably the most bold story that you're gonna ever hear.
Yeah.
So if you can send me the invite link on the private, then she's willing to join.
if I sing an invite to the private?
Yeah, I can.
Who's
send it to
coming
you.
up?
It's gonna be the case of Rosemary Rodriguez.
Okay.
Her mother is somebody I've been advocating for, and she's the most sweetest, loving lady that I ever met.
Is she in the chat right now?
No, she's not. She's an elderly lady, and I just talked to her and just gave her the link to her YouTube. So
Okay.
If we
Well,
can
let me
give her
finish
the invite
this.
link.
Well, let me finish this up and then we'll
Okay.
get there. Okay. No
Yeah.
problem. I'm down with that.
A few days later, Amy goes to another doctor for a follow-up appointment for the injury to her face. She tells them she got hit in the face with a softball. Now think about this. When you're the victim of domestic violence and you finally have the courage to disclose to a police officer in a hospital bed what happened to you, and nothing changes, are you going to keep telling the story? Amy's still working at the Uniontown store. She has been putting in for transfers, trying to move back to the State College area. And in August, she is granted an emergency transfer from the Uniontown store to the State College store. And that transfer is being made so she can escape Vincent. What the employer doesn't know is that Vincent goes with her.
No way. You can't escape these guys.
You know, like when she came back to State College, she had told us it was her and the kids coming. And then, you know, she called us when she got here and we went up and he was there too. And I said, how come he's here? And he, you know, she said, well, he decided he wants to be a family.
When I first met her, Amy came to the store her first day of work. She had a black and blue eye. She had claimed that she had been hit by a softball, but her work ethic and everything was really good. It was really good. So she kind of fit in with us right off the bat.
I was hired as a customer service rep, and she was the one that trained me in my position. And I got to know her really well.
When she first started there, when she thought we didn't know, it was like, oh yeah, Vince is a good man. Oh yeah, you know, this kind of thing. But you do that.
And when she transitions into that new store, her coworkers are now helping her transition by posting fake schedules for Vincent so that he doesn't know that she's working late with males or that she's closing the store with a male or she's on a shift with a male, which tells us something. If you need to post a work schedule for someone on site, that means he's coming there.
The first time that I think I realized that there were some situations going on with Amy and her husband when she made a phone call from the store and she started yelling her husband's name on the phone. And after she got off the phone, she said that her husband had passed out on the floor and that he was supposed to be babysitting the boys. And the one little boy answered the telephone, and she had him take the phone over to his dad, and she kept trying to get him away.
That's a great question, Infinity. I was thinking the same thing. Did he ever work? Did he ever supply any kind of money into the home? He sure was drinking all the time, though. Or I thought Infinity asked that. Texas Ranger, I'm sorry. Man, I need my glasses. My bad. Welcome, Texas. Anyways, Infinity, I gave you the credit for that. But Texas, you asked the question. We will get to that case. This is almost completed. We will get to that case.
And she left the store a little bit after that to go home and get the boys and take them to her mom's.
You can't force a person that's being abused to come forward. One, because they're scared. Two, because they have no self-esteem. And three, they don't know if other people are going to believe what they're saying. So I had told her my story. And I had told her that I actually had just left in April of that year, my husband of 21 years of domestic violence. It was funny. I guess I wanted Amy, when I learned about her, I wanted her to experience the happiness that I felt, believe it or not, the morning that I left.
The one time that really stuck out in my mind was the time that she came in and she had bruises across both of her arms. And she said that she was pulling something off the top of a shelf in the plaza and it fell down and hit her. And later she admitted that he had hit her with a baseball bat.
And it did kind of affect not her, the way she worked when she was at work, but like she would be late, or she would have to leave, or she would call off, or, you know, you could just kind of see the signs without her actually coming out and saying, you know, that this was going on. I mean, she did talk about Vince's drinking, but she,
I wonder what kind of effect this had on the small children. It should be traumatic to them as well, don't you think?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Because don't you forget that every single child, they will remember.
Right.
she always denied the abuse, you know, the physical part of it and everything. Until one day that she finally had told us that she was not hit by a softball, that Vince had done it. And I think maybe that was a turning point for Amy.
In September 1st of 2001, Amy's father, Garth Holman, calls the State College police. And he calls the State College police because he needs help with his drunk son-in-law. And he tells the police, he's drunk. I want him out of here. I want him out of this house. I own this house and I don't want him here anymore. Well, the couple has lived there together for 3 weeks. This is Vincent's home. We can't kick Vincent out of his home because he's drunk. So we assist Amy in leaving with Garth, with the 2 children, and going over to her mom and dad's house. So that incident on the 1st of September, when we were out there and he was intoxicated, he relinquished 1 handgun to State College police for safekeeping due to his intoxication. Remember, he's been on probation since he shot that gun off in the car. So when we check his probation status, we find out from the probation department in Bedford County that we just missed it. He just came off of probation and we did not catch it in time to violate him on his probationary status. We don't have any lawful reason to keep this gun from him under the current gun laws, so we have to give it back to him.
He would follow her all over the store. And then if she made him leave, then he would call the store constantly. Every couple minutes, if we picked up the phone, it was usually him. And we would say that she's busy with a customer.
We just wanted to be friends. We just wanted her to be able to come to us and feel like she had someone to come to, feel like she had friends.
Probably about middle October, and she had started to contemplate ways to end the relationship and get out. She said that she had made the move to State College to get away from Vince, but he followed her here.
He was so controlling, so just always there, you know what I mean? Even though he physically wasn't there, to Amy, he was like always there because he was like on the phone calling, or she would have to call him.
October 16th of 2001, Amy sends an email to her employer pleading to get transferred back to the Uniontown store. Now remember, she just came to State College in August, and now in October, she's asking to go back. And the email sounds very distraught and it's stressed, and there's a tone of desperation in this email. And she's describing her dad and Vincent getting into it again and saying that she's stuck in the middle. And she's thinking that if she can get back to Uniontown, maybe Vincent will calm back down. The employer gets back to her on October 21st and says, "I'm sorry, We cannot transfer you back to Uniontown until the State College store is up to full staff.
I think initially Amy, the red flags were flying whenever she was allowed to drive herself to work. This was something that did not happen. And that particular day, he allowed her to drive the truck to work alone.
So this seems very, very pattern orientated. Like you always know, you always hear me talk about pattern. And Frank, you're welcome, man. I mean, you know, I'm sorry that this video is taking so long. I do want to talk about that as a case, but if you go and talk about it, that's cool. Thank you for being over here. But this case, it just seems like there's a lot of up and downs, a lot of patterns that people were able to see, but they were almost having their hands tied because they couldn't step in to save somebody when that person was trapped. It's almost like nobody knew exactly how she felt toward this man. At this point, she could have still believed that he could change because she could remember the good parts about the relationship, you know, the good part about who he is or who he was. And these other areas, she could be making excuses as to why she couldn't leave him. Can't leave him. That's the father of my kids, blah, blah, blah. Can't leave him when he's, you know, at his worst. What's going to happen to him?
And that moves us to November 8th of 2001. Amy got up that day thinking it was like every other day. She knew she had to get ready for work and then wake Vincent in order for him to drive her to work. She wasn't allowed to have a car. So the standard routine in that household was that he would get up, drive her to work, she would work throughout the day, and then he would pick her up immediately after work so that he could then retake that control of her day. So on this day, November 8th, she woke up, got ready for work, went to wake Vincent. And she says to Vincent, "It's time to get up, I have to go to work." And he says, "No, I'm not driving you. I have to go to work. I can't keep missing work. Every time I miss work, I'm getting in more and more trouble. I'm going to lose my job. You take the truck then." Take the truck. This was unheard of. Why would he let her take the truck? So she gets in the truck and she drives to work. And she gets herself frantic, worrying about what's happening there at the house. What's going on with her children? Why was she allowed to take the truck to work today?
We were busy. We were short-staffed at the store.
Amy was kind of quiet that morning. She wasn't as jovial as what she...
Chat, have you guys ever known anybody who experienced this type of behavior or have lived through this type of behavior and made it to the other side? And, you know, you can kind of relate to what Amy was going through. If you've ever gone through this situation or you know somebody who's going through this situation, it's hell being on that side when you want nothing but the best for them. But most of the time they're adults, so it's not like you could step in and tell them what to do. And that is the hard part about domestic violence is, you know, you can't just step in and run an adult's life. I mean, you got to give them that kind of benefit. But when somebody is hurting them, it's even harder for the legal system to get involved, as Frank was saying earlier. So share your stories or share your understanding of people that you might have in your life in the past or present that have dealt with this, and how did you get out? Give other chat members some insights on what they could possibly do legally to get out of these situations without having to get beat up anymore, get hurt anymore, or have the children even visualize this.
She usually is. She seemed concerned.
So as she gets herself more and more anxious, knowing that something is up with Vincent, she goes ahead and calls her mom. About 10:30 that day, she calls her mother and she says to her mother, I know I'm calling you again. I'm sorry that I'm calling you again. But something's going on with Vincent. I don't know why he let me take the truck to work today. I'm at work right now. He's not answering the phone. I don't know what's going on with the babies. Can you please go check on them? Well, even her mom recognized this as something different. So her mom's concern was also piqued. So mom says, you know what? You stay at work. I'll go over and check the boys. So grandma takes the day off from work. She drives over to the house and she finds Vincent asleep on a mattress in the family room with the one baby tucked under his arm in a soiled diaper and the toddler sort of running around the house also in soiled clothing. So she wakes him up. Vincent, what's going on? Why are the kids all soiled? Why aren't you up? What's happening today? And so when he wakes up, he starts to tell her, I'm just too tired. I just can't handle all the stress. Amy doesn't understand how hard it is for me to raise these children. Amy goes off to work and she's outside the house and she has all her friends and she goofs off all day and I'm stuck here with these kids. So grandma says, you know what? I understand. You must be tired. Grandma's not going to start this argument with him all over again. Grandma says, I will take the children for the day with me. So grandma cleans up the two little children and takes them for the day. Now Vincent, who is so tired, instead of laying back down and going to sleep, he immediately starts calling the phone store.
And I actually, at the time, didn't realize that her cell phone was ringing so much and that she was answering the phone because I was with customers and stuff. And
Let me get to some of these answers before you guys scroll all the way up. All the necessary reason to start hiding potential things that would hurt you. Very good. It's worse than hell, 12 gauge. You definitely have to have a plan to get away. And keep a low profile. Biggest problem is believing they will change and we keep giving in. Nina, will you like to come up on panel to give some insight, a female perspective? There's the link. This video is almost over. I'd like to talk afterwards. It's terrible. This is a terrible subject.
it got to the point where Vince was actually calling the store a lot.
There were probably at least 20 to 25 phone calls, just, every 15, 20 minutes. Then it got to the point where we didn't answer that line. We would just ignore it.
Lo and behold, Vincent shows up. He had walked from his residence to the store. He comes into the store and he goes into the back room where he begins to confront Amy. Where's the truck? Why aren't you taking my calls? Who's hanging up the phone on me? Who's telling me that I can't call you? Who do you think you are for standing up to me? So the coworker goes into the back room where armed Vincent, coworkers don't know he's armed, where armed Vincent is arguing with his wife. They go up to Vincent and they tell him, if you don't leave, we're going to call the police. And Vincent says, fine. And he storms out of the store. When she has convinced herself that he has really left, the phone starts to ring at the phone store. And it's Vincent. He found the truck. And he tells her he's going to go out drinking, and he slams down the phone on her. Now she turns to her coworkers, and she's even more distraught.
She was scared to death. It's the only way I can describe it. She's just scared to death. She begged and pleaded with me to please don't call the police. And it wasn't about Vince. It was about what Vince would do afterwards. And so I didn't call.
Vince came back with the truck around closing time, and Amy had already gone. Unbeknownst to him, her family had picked her up. They decided to go have dinner together.
Vince then pulled out, probably wasn't there more than 2 minutes. He pulled out. He didn't leave in the direction of where him and Amy lived. And I sort of figured that he was headed to find Amy. I just kept trying to call her. I kept trying to call. I probably called like 4 or 5 times. And her phone just kept going to voicemail. I couldn't let her know. I wanted to let her know that Vince was probably headed that way.
Now that's a friend right there. Hey, Nina, welcome to the panel. How are you doing today?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. What do you think about this? You probably heard about this. I hadn't really heard this story.
Oh yeah, it's one of the saddest ones.
Yeah?
Yeah, I mean, because and protective orders. My gosh, I mean, I understand it's not the only legal, as far as doing anything legal, but I mean, they're not. They're as good as the papers that are written on. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know how you would stop. You can't prevent what's going to happen anyway.
In this story?
In any of them. I mean, trying to do it with protective orders and stuff like that because, the police can't be there. They can't walk you to work. They can't, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
I mean, and everybody knows that, hey, it's going to be over and the protective order is useless anyway because they're going to get it done anyway.
See, I don't know what happens. I mean, I know obviously in the beginning what her mom said, but I don't know the whole story.
Right.
Thank you for being here. I'd like to have a conversation after this is over. It's almost done.
Oh, no, I'm in no hurry. Go ahead.
All right, cool.
And I didn't hear anything else.
So he drives directly to the restaurant. And when he gets to the restaurant, he goes into the table where Amy and her parents and her 2 young children are eating dinner. And he goes right up to her at the restaurant and he begins to confront her again. And she says, "Enough. I can't do this anymore." And she tells him, "You have until tomorrow out of that house. You call your brother, you call your sister, you call whoever you need to call, but you tell them to come get you and come get your stuff and get out. It is over with us. I am done. I'm taking the boys and I'm going to my parents' house and that's where we're staying until you get out of there." And he says, "Fine." And he storms out of the restaurant. So she turns to her dad and she says, "Hey, can we stop at the house? I need to go in and I need to get some things for the babies." And they drive back to Amy's house so she can go into the house and get all the things that a mom would need to take care of her babies at grandma's house for a couple of days. So when they pull up to the residence, Amy gets out of the car while her father and her mother and her 2 young babies sit in the car. She goes into the house to get diapers and onesies and bottles. And then her parents and her children wait. And no one knew Vincent was inside the house. He had parked the truck inside the garage. And she's in there for 5 minutes. And then Vincent comes out. And when Vincent comes out, he says, "Someone call 911. I just shot Amy." And he shot her in the top of the head at point blank range, and he killed her instantly. And when we hear a story like this, every time I tell this, I think to myself, make it end differently. Make it end with a happy ending. And I can't, because this really happened in the life of Amy Holman McGee. And so we have to ask ourselves, what can we do as a community to change the ending for another victim?
If you or someone you know needs help, please call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE. Help is available 24 hours a day. Advocates provide crisis intervention, safety planning, information, and referrals. Share this film, discuss it with others, and please visit telling.psu.edu to start the conversation in your community.
Wow.
We can't change what happened to Amy Holman McGee, as Detective Fischel said, or the thousands of victims killed by domestic violence. But we are not powerless to prevent this from happening to our friends, our neighbors, our sisters, mothers, loved ones, and to ourselves. I am joined by Cheryl Cates of the National Domestic Violence Hotline and a leading expert on the issue of domestic violence. Welcome, Cheryl.
Thank you, Mariska. Wow. When you see that video, it's just Amy's story is so heart-wrenching.
I think that when we watch a show, a documentary like we've just seen, and you think like, how did this happen? How could it have happened? And we feel so powerless. And how can we, as you said, empower ourselves? The way to empower ourselves is to talk about it. And we wish more people are talking about it. And that's the only way we'll ever be able to.
And believing that they can make a difference, right? I mean, if I know someone or have a friend, a family member, or a coworker, and say, I want to help, or how can I help?
I remember when I was first doing my research for SVU, and I went through some crisis training, and I learned the statistics, and I was just dumbfounded. If people knew them, then everyone would be talking about it. It's true that it affects all of us. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. I mean, we know that 1 in 4 women will. Yes.
Which means that if you're at lunch with 4 girlfriends,
Yes.
1 in 4, or you're at a baby shower and you look around the room at 20 women and you say, if that statistic is the truth in this room, what does that mean?
And I looked at, in my own family where we have 4 girls, and one of my sisters has been abused. And I think that statistic comes alive at that moment. It's not just someone else. It's my family. It's your family. Domestic violence can happen to anyone, any race, any age, sexual orientation, religion, gender. It also can happen across all socioeconomic backgrounds and education levels. There's often a question about men. Are men abused as well? And yes, they are. But the vast majority, 85%, are females.
What is the impact of a child growing up in a violent household?
When they are exposed to violence in the home, I think children, it has a profound impact on them. And we know that, there's 3.3 million children who are affected by domestic violence. So
before we get into those statistics, may I ask you, just for clarity, what is exactly domestic violence? Can you tell us, really define it for us about what it is?
Well, it's a pattern of behavior where someone uses power and control in any relationship and against their intimate partner. It's physical, it's emotional, it's sexual, it's psychological, it's economic. It may be where someone actually threatens and terrorizes another person. And creating.
I just want to stop you for 1 second, because I think that's something that people need to hear. If somebody threatens you or intimidates you or uses a weapon or touches you in an unsafe way, that is abuse.
Right.
That is not normal behavior. And if somebody is treating you like that, even though you're used to it, it's not okay.
Right.
And it's not normal, and it needs to change. And we urge you to tell someone.
And we do want them to tell someone. I mean, if they can, there are shelters all across this country, and they do such wonderful work. And they're here 24/7.
I mean, she's right about the shelters, but I've had a lot of friends that have dealt with this, and I don't know how much it is about pride, about the circumstance. I mean, I've never been a woman, so I have no clue. And that's one of the reasons that I had Nina up here, to give the female perspective as her understanding. What I'm saying is, You know, I suggested a friend of mine go to a shelter the other day, and she said, all shelters are full. All shelters are full. But any suggestion that I gave, it's almost like she shot it down. Nina, do you have any feedback on this?
Oh, Lord have mercy. Well, I just left.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm, yeah. Anyway, but
How
sitting in-
difficult?
how difficult? We were together almost 18 years.
Okay.
And in the last, I guess just this year, out of the 18 years, I guess this year would be like the first time that it ever got to the, okay, time to go. I mean, and, but anyway, when I went through, I guess, see, to me, there's a difference in the verbal abuse and and I know there's really not. I know I just tell myself, oh, they didn't hit me, but I'll tell anybody right now, male or female, don't ever be thankful that you're not getting hit. That's not something to be thankful for. And that's how I
Right.
used to find myself in some of the worst relationships because guess what? They didn't hit me. It didn't matter if they called me names. It didn't matter what, but they didn't hit me. You
I've
see what
heard
I'm
that.
saying?
Yeah, I've heard that before.
So,
You know,
I
the-
finally had to learn I don't need to be grateful for not getting hit. That should be an expectation, not
right.
something to be grateful for, but I will also be the first to say that I learned how to manipulate my domestic violence to where it worked in my favor.
Okay.
And I'm woman enough to admit that,
Okay.
because, when it was getting really bad and everything, I knew how far to push to where I could get the reaction and then get that, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And let me love you the way that you need me to love you, and I got what I needed. So I learned how to manipulate my bad situation to work in my advantage.
Well, I mean, it's a toxic situation regardless of how people, as you said, you let it work in your favor. And the same thing happens in a substance abuse home. You get into that codependency type of thinking where you're trying to outsmart the person who's hurting you. So you end up being just like them because you're taking on their isms, so to speak.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's like, that other case that we're not talking about today, they said that, from being bullied to bully,
Mhm.
and I'll be honest with you. I became the aggressor because you weren't going to hit me. I was going to hit first. I was
Right.
going to be the dominant one. I was going to show you that I rule, and that didn't work out very good for me either.
No, it doesn't. I mean, I heard a long time ago, love doesn't hurt.
Right.
And as simple as that statement is, it is so complex. Love doesn't hurt. And many people, they say, well, I love them. And just like you said, at least I'm not getting hit.
Yeah.
It's verbal.
I mean,
They make excuses. They're just joking. They're kidding. Go ahead.
but the thing about it is we begin to believe it. We begin to believe that this is just my life. This is what I deserve. Well, I shouldn't have done this. I shouldn't have made him mad. I shouldn't have, every time I drove myself to the hospital and walked in, I mean, I'll never forget, I was fixing to get hit with a broom. And, just instantaneously, you put your arms up because we were standing up. And, you put your arms up to protect your face. It's just an instant, response. And so I put my arms up, and the broom came across my left arm, and immediately the top part of my hand and everything just fell over because it broke the ulna and the radius. I mean, it just snapped them, you know. And so I'm sitting there holding my arm together. I got to go to the emergency room, and they're like, okay, well, I'll drop you off down the road. You're going to do what? What do you mean you're going to drop me off down the road? I'm sitting here holding my arm together because if not, it just flops because there's no bones in there connected, dude, you know? And so sure enough, takes me to the hospital, and, you know, they're like, Joe, what happened? Oh, well, you know, I was drunk tonight and I fell going up the steps, and I got away with saying that story because when the broom came across the side of my arm, it left a big bruise. So it looked like I had tripped going up a step and hit like the edge of the top step. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, so I got away with that story. And so the hospital was like, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, y'all ain't touching me because my arm will grow back like all backwards or something, you know? So at the time, he was going to Health South in Birmingham, which is, you know, at the time, Health South was the big pro football, stuff like that, you know, and for his arm. And so Dr. Sanders agreed to see me, and Dr. Sanders wasn't stupid because we had been going to him forever with my husband's arm, and he looked at my arm and he knew. You could tell he knew. So he puts me in a cast, and about 4 weeks later, we go in for a checkup, and he's like, well, it's growing crooked. And I was like, what's that mean? You know, well, what do you do about that? Because what happened was when they put it together, because there was not anything to hold them together, they started growing crooked. And he said, well, we can either put you in the hospital and do surgery and put plates and everything in, or we can re-break it. Okay, we'll re-break it then, you know.
Wow.
Dave, do you know how they re-break your arm? Do you know what those little Chinese things are that you put on your fingers? And when you pull, they grip. What are they, Chinese?
Yeah, finger cuffs.
Yes, Chinese finger cuffs. Yeah. Okay, so you're laying in a bed, and they put your elbow over on like a rolly stool with your hand sticking up, and they put a sandbag on your top part of your arm. And they put your fingers in these Chinese things, right? Well, then all of a sudden, they just kick the rolly stool out from under, and the sandbag pulls one side down, and the Chinese things hold the fingers up. Yeah.
Wow. Always wondered what those things were for, because those things were found in the Night Stalker case, the Robert Ramirez case.
Right. Well, that's what they are. And that's what it does is when you pull down, there's no getting out because that's what tightens them.
Yeah.
And so I ended up being in a cat. But anyway, long story short is I'm walking to the hospital because, you know, he might be arrested if he goes all the way to the door, you know.
Right.
So I'm walking, holding my arm, and I'm going in there saying that I was drunk and I tripped going up the steps. Why you do that? Why did I do that? Why didn't I walk in there and say, some crazy, stupid psycho just broke my arm. Can somebody help me?
It's beyond, I mean, it's Stockholm syndrome, kind of like the individuals that are sex trafficked. Like I was watching this video of this guy, you know, kind of like the Charles Ng and that other guy. You know, you get away, you get to go to your parents' house, or you get to go grocery shopping. You'd think that they'd run to the police and say, look, I'm being held captive. But most of them don't. They don't. They go back to the abuser because it's the Stockholm syndrome, you know. They start having feelings, not loving feelings, but they can kind of relate to the abusers telling them, they're manipulating them, they're grooming them continuously, and brainwashing them, so to speak.
Well, I
Leslie,
mean, the thing about it is, okay, let's see. I started going through mine when I was 16, and I divorced him when I was 20.
Mm-hmm.
So 4 years of it. But a lot of mine was, oh, no. I've got to fix this because I can't let mom and daddy know they were right about him. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? I got to make this work, and I got to show them, because they made us get married, and I've got to show them that I knew what I was talking about, and I wasn't even pregnant.
Right.
How you going to take your 16-year-old daughter to the courthouse and say, here you are, see you later, go work your job and pay your rent?
Right.
I mean,
Let's finish this up. Hopefully Ludley will come up and join us after this, and we can talk some more.
okay.
You're such a strong woman for sharing that. I mean, it is not easy, I'm sure, to, even though it's been years, every time you share these stories, it's like you're reliving them all over again.
It'll have an effect, but it'll have a good effect.
Yeah.
They are here to do counseling and legal services and create an environment for their lives to change, for hope to happen. And they do an amazing amount of advocacy on behalf of the victim and make sure that they're safe.
Well, another thing that I hear over and over from survivors of abuse, domestic violence, the fact is they feel alone because of the shame and the guilt.
And they need to know they're not alone.
They're not alone.
Not alone.
And the 1 in 4 statistic proves that.
Right. And I think one of the things that we again tell them is that reaching out to someone for help is critical. We know that oftentimes it takes a tremendous amount of courage. It takes a tremendous amount of courage to reach out and make that first phone call.
And they feel that it is their fault, which it is so not. And I think it's so important to be non-judgmental about it. And I think it's hard for people because they don't understand it. And there does seem to be a lot of judgment toward the victim. Why didn't they just leave? Why are they still staying in a relationship? I would never put up with that if somebody was treating me that. And I just get that question over and over. Why doesn't she just leave? And I think so many times it's women that truly feel that they do not have an option, and that is why they stay, especially if they're financially dependent on the husband. How are they going to care for the children? How are they going to eat? But I want to ask the question this way, not why didn't she leave, but why does the abuser choose to abuse?
And, I have a story for that in terms of what I've heard from men who perpetrate violence. And I actually was in a class with a man who was talking about what he had done to his partner, where he had actually taken her head and put it into a bureau or a dresser. And he said, I can do this. I have the right to do it. And it works. When I tell her to shut up, she now shuts up. And also he said, and there's no consequences. And that to me was one of those moments where I thought to myself that we have to change that thinking of a person who is perpetrating violence, that they can't do that. We're not going to tolerate this. We are not going to allow this to continue. We're not going to keep blaming victims because they want the violence to stop.
And they love the person. They want the abuse to stop. They don't want the relationship to stop.
I've even heard people say they deserve what they get.
Oh, I don't even know how to respond to that.
So that's something I wanted them to say is that, we as community members can step in and make a difference. And even if they don't leave, let's try to reserve our judgment so that we can respect their decisions and the timing that they have, because they know more than we will ever know.
Exactly.
It's not an easy answer, but there is, I think, an answer for communities to be more involved, get more educated, be a listening ear. Think about ways that you could have made a difference in Amy's story. It's simple. It's reaching out in terms of the other day I was at a picking up my clothes at the cleaners and seeing a woman with a black eye and 4 marks on her arm, and just taking a moment to let her know that if there's somewhere you need to go. I have a 1-800 number, and there's someone who can help you there. We, as a community member, have to say that if my neighbor is abusing their spouse or their loved one or intimate partner, that we have an opportunity to make that call to the police department or to say, hey, I heard something going on last night and I'm not okay with this.
Well,
I'm
worried. I wanted to ask you about that. I think that is such a difficult thing for people that they're so scared of. I mean, if you suspect something that is going on with friends of yours, right? And you know, you're close with the husband and you think he's a great guy, but you've noticed that he's being disrespectful, or he yells at her, or he threatens her in public, and then you say to yourself, well, if he's doing that in front of us, what is he doing when they're alone? So how can people, you know, people are scared. What if they're wrong? You know, what if I'm right? Who am I to get involved? It's not my business.
But it is our business. It makes our neighborhoods unsafe. It makes our families and our homes unsafe. So I think that's important that we take the opportunity to say something. If nothing else, give a card of here's where you might can get some help, or is there some things going on in your relationship that, you know, I'm here for you to talk, or when you're ready, I'm here for you. And I'm telling you, they will come back to you. They will see you, that you've heard them, that you're not leaving them alone, that they can trust you with these most vile secrets sometimes, you know, where they've been not only physically abused, emotionally abused, psychologically abused, and sexually abused. And when that all happens to you and you're trying to decide, am I going to leave? Am I going to stay? Can I trust this person with my life? Because this person who is my intimate partner who says they love me is the one that's hurting me the most.
And how can they trust anyone, what you just said? If the person who says, I love you, if the person who they're supposed to trust the most and garner that support and love from, you know, is betraying them, how confusing. That's like getting the rug pulled out from you every day. I mean, just in watching, you know, the movie, and I know I keep going back to this word complexity, but I just find it so key, because when you're watching the movie and the way Vince wanted to drive her to work and everything, at first you're thinking, oh, that is so sweet at the beginning. And especially imagine, you know, a young girl that has never had this kind of attention before, and he wants to be with her every second, but she works, so he thinks, oh, you know,
it's actually controlling behavior.
I always say to young girls I meet to trust their gut, to trust that intuition. And if ever they're in a situation when they don't feel safe, get out.
Absolutely. And I think that those are great words. See, you just said it. This is what a community member can do. This is what each one of us can do.
You're saying the most important thing is for us to acknowledge them, to remind them about their strength, to listen to them, let them know that the abuse is not their fault.
And not okay.
And not okay.
We can make this happen together. We can prevent domestic violence. We can stop it.
I remember a participant on one of our programs for the Joyful Heart Foundation trip once said that it was her first time that her body didn't feel like a crime scene. And I just remember how that stuck with me. And I thought, you know, nobody should ever feel like that.
That's awful.
So I have the same ambition for all women who are being abused. What can we do collectively to solve this?
As members of the public, we can donate our time and our energy in terms of volunteering, knowing what your public officials think about this issue. What do they vote on this issue? That is critical. And be sure you know the resources in your community. There may be many options for a person. It may be in a faith-based organization. It may be a shelter provider. Have a conversation. Begin the dialogue.
Yeah, see something, say something. That was an awesome video. That was an awesome story. I mean, not the way it ended, but, you know, see something, say something. What do you think, Nina?
Not to be crass about it, but like she said that, you know, it's the first time her body didn't feel like a crime scene.
Yeah.
I can remember a statement one time when I got with Marty that, I don't know, something was said and I was like, yeah, but I'm not used to that because I was always just used to being a sperm receptacle. And she was like, what? What? And,
Right.
but that's how we start feeling, is because, nothing's pleasurable for us. You know what I'm saying? So you just become whatever.
You know what I've learned in time, Nina, is, because I've wanted to help people even outside of my job. I've tried to help people get out of domestic violence situations. I've tried to help them, restart their lives, things like that. But one mistake that I noticed very early on is you cannot be pushing for change as much as the abuser was pushing for dominance. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes. Now keep in mind too that most of the time, we have to realize that, and this is in no kind of way taking up for anybody that's an abuser at all. Okay. But just like a serial killer or whatever, there's things that made that person. We are what people make us, regardless.
Right.
And so I think that's where I always kept tripping myself up. I mean, hell, like I said, we got married when I was 16. We started dating or whatever, when I was 14, that first love,
Yeah.
And, he was my first love. Lost the virginity, married him at 16. He was pretty much all I knew. You know what I'm saying? And like I said too, is you gotta make sure you prove everybody wrong. It was a good thing. And I think that's where a lot of people get hung up in is. And another thing that I want to make very, very clear is, even though the majority of DV and SA are against women, I want everybody to understand that it can happen to a man just as easy. And I believe happening to a man is worse. Last summer, I actually went through it with a good friend of mine. And unfortunately, what happened was she was in the wrong, and stuff happened as far as like SA and stuff like that. Well, she got mad one night and called the police and accused him of DV. And unfortunately, the world that we live in, if the woman screams DV first,
the man goes.
I mean, and oh my gosh, that was probably one of the worst times for me before I left TikTok, because me. Oh my gosh. I mean, I was holding lives, and I was ranting and raving, and because nobody would listen to him. He was just automatically guilty.
Right, right. This topic is hard to talk about, but it's needed because it's silenced. It's silenced by so many people as, no, well, that's not my relationship. That's not my business. Well, like that individual said in that video, it keeps our communities unsafe.
Right.
That guy he let off a gunshot in the truck, the passenger side. The babies are in the back seat. Who does that, Nina? Who does that?
Hey, I know. Let's see. When David, my son, was 9 months old, he stopped sleeping. Couldn't get that kid to sleep for nothing. He wouldn't be crying. He wouldn't be hungry. He just would not sleep. So I carried him to the doctor, and the doctor gave me this medicine called Atarax.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And he's like, you can either give it to him at a certain time at night, get him on a schedule, and then we start weaning him off of it. Or I have some of the mamas that take it and just let the baby sit in the baby bed. And I'm like, whoa, no, that one's not an option, And so sure enough, I mean, at 9 months old, I started giving David Atarax, and I won't never forget the name of the medicine. Because, but come to find out, at 9 months old, it was affecting him, And the only way, I guess, of lashing out or whatever a 9-month-old can do is, screw you, mama, you're not sleeping. I mean,
Right. I
So
mean, it just,
it starts affecting the kids at very young ages.
yeah. Melissa says, what about the guy relationships? Can you be a little more forthcoming with your question? What do you mean by that?
Well, I can tell you the story that I'm talking about is he retired from military intelligence, 2 Purple Hearts. I mean, this is like, the man's man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And he and I mean, he looked at me. I mean, when he came to my 12-year celebration for being clean, he was like, I will always respect you as a mother. I will treat you as a mother. I will cook for you as a mother. I will, and we talked every day. And the night that it happened, he called me. It was like 3:00 in the morning, and he was like, Nina. And I was like, what the heck, Well, he was, I get, they have PTSD and stuff like that. So, of course, there's cameras all in the house. And he said that he woke up and she was just like laying over him, and he looked at the camera. And he actually sent me the camera footage, and I've still got it. I swear to God, she looks like the girl in The Ring, like creeping and stuff like that. I mean, it's terrible. And she's touching him. And because of the PTSD and everything, he tried to explain to her that if that had startled him, that it could have been a bad thing for her with his PTSD. When you wake somebody up like that, that's suffering like that's a dangerous situation. And anyway, everything escalated and everything, and it started from her doing that while he was asleep.
Yeah, I used to wake up like that myself. Like, I'd tell a girlfriend, I'd be like, hey, don't stand over me, don't shake me like that, touch my feet, just tickle my feet, whatever. Don't stand over me because, I wake up swinging. I don't do that anymore, but, when I was going through my own.
It can be dangerous.
Yeah, it could be dangerous.
And so he asked me, he said, please talk to her, and blah, blah, blah. We did and everything. And so she just kept escalating and everything. And so the night that it escalated, her and his little boy, he had took them into the bedroom to get away from her. And she came into the door, and he was getting her out of the room. And so she was outside the room, and he was shutting the door, and she stuck her leg and arm through there. And so it bruised her arm. Well, in the video, you can see him lock the door and just sit down on the bed with his son.
Right.
There was no escalating it. There was no nothing. But because he was the male, he got the brunt of the. And I told her, don't go public with this. Do not announce this on TikTok. And she had to go and I guess bark first. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because some people they have to have it their story. You know what I'm saying? And it's whoever barks first.
Exactly. Well, I'm going to play this right quick because this is what Frank sent me. So you guys go check out Frank's channel. I think he's going to do this live about this individual. I don't know anything about it. It's 25 seconds long. So hang in there, and then I'm going to cut this live off because it's been great. It's been quite emotional. And thank you, Nina, so much for your feedback and your bravery to get out of those situations. I hope that you continue working on yourself so that you don't find yourself ever in those positions again. Especially the chat members, any of you that are dealing with this, continue to reach out to your advocate to see if you can get a safe place, get a lot of resources, and, be mindful of the lessons learned in life. I mean, sometimes we make mistakes. Sometimes we fall in love with people that don't know how to love back, the people that start off loving us, but over time they become a totally different person.
Oh yeah.
Two people
I mean,
are
that's the
dead
thing
following
about
a
it.
domestic-related shooting at a gas station in Maryville, Indiana. It happened just before 10 o'clock this morning at a Loop gas station on Highway 30. Police say when they arrived, they found the bodies of two people inside the station. They do say it was a murder-suicide stemming from a domestic matter. The identities of the two victims have not yet been released.
And I think this is the one that Frank gonna do. So you guys can go check out his channel. If one of the mods would put his link to his channel in the chat, that'd be awesome. What were you gonna say, Nina?
So, Gage, have you heard about P. Diddy's lawyer?
No.
P. Diddy's lawyer stepped away from the case. Now, keep in mind that his lawyer defended Osama bin Laden.
Really?
Now, what kind of man is P. Diddy? if you will not defend him and you defended Osama bin Laden.
Right.
I mean, think about that, y'all.
I didn't know about that.
And did you hear about Alabama's Huntsville Police Department?
Mm-mm.
Oh, yeah. We have this little town in Huntsville, Alabama. Their whole police department is arrested and disbanded. All the way up to the police chief. They were getting drugs and stuff out of the evidence room. Found their dispatcher dead in the office off of fent.
What?
Yes.
Wow.
And then they would get the steroids and they would go to the hospital. And the chief's wife would give them their steroid shots. I mean, stealing all this out of the evidence locker and everything.
Where's this at?
Huntsville, Alabama. HANCEVILLE.
Wow.
You ought to do a story on it. I'm serious. It is interesting as shit.
Well, gather up the information, co-host it with me, and we'll do it. Just let me know when you want to.
I was like, yeah, here I am, a guilter, and I'm gonna put all this out there about these. Let's
You
make
are
the.
not a guilty. Quit putting labels on yourself.
I'm a pea burger.
You're a pea burger. Oh my goodness. Well, you guys, thank you so much. Nina, you want to say anything to the chat before we close this out?
Nope. I'll see y'all tonight.
I'm very serious about that, Nina. Put that together and we'll present it because it does sound interesting.
Okay.
You guys in the chat, once again, I think the number is 1-800-SAFE-PLACE. If you guys are struggling with something or you know somebody that needs that number, sometimes you can just give all you can give and let the seed grow, because a lot of times people are not going to be open to your suggestion. Sometimes they just want somebody to listen and let them know that they're not alone. So don't get angry with them. Don't shut your door. Don't say, well, you know what? They're just going to go right back to them. I don't know why you even listen. You know what I mean? So be kind. And Nina, I'm going to play this song while you're on.
Okay.
I want to see how you react to it. You know I love music, Nina.
Oh,
You know-
music is definitely the way to go.
Yeah, yeah. Well, y'all have a good evening, and I'll see y'all soon. Be safe out there. Take care of your family. Take care of yourself. And take care of your freedom. All right, Nina. Well, we're out of here.
All right, bye.
Bye.